Good afternoon and welcome to the first installment of the Sports Speakers Series, hosted tonight by the Sports Careers RSO and Bulldog Radio. I am the president of Sports Careers RSO, Nico LaGreca. Thank you all for coming out tonight as we make our move from a fully virtual event to a hybrid series, and hopefully in the future to a fully in-person event. Just a housekeeping note before we begin, if you could hold all of your questions till after Mr. Negandhi has given his presentation, that'd be great. For those joining us via Zoom, there's a Q&A feature you can use in the chat. And for those of us here in person, you can just raise your hand. We are very honored tonight to have two distinguished guests among us. I'd like to take the time now to introduce one of them. This gentleman is a Ferris grad from 2009. Upon graduation, he started working part-time with ESPN and has been there now for 12 years. During his time with ESPN, he was a part of the stats and information group and transitioned over to research in 2019. Some of his major accomplishments while at ESPN include that he was one of the main contributors for college football and basketball coverage. He was the primary researcher for the 2019 Peach Bowl, and he worked as a part of the 2021 NBA draft in Brooklyn. And he was the college basketball game day researcher this past season. Other shows that he's worked on include The Daily Wager, which is ESPN's gambling show, 6 p.m. Sports Center, and College Football Live. Most notably, he recently won a Sports Emmy for his contributions to the Sports Center show group. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Gil Bransford.
Thank you guys. It's funny talking to Dr. A. I don't know about distinguished. I told Dr. A I'm like the opening act for the headliner today. No, it's always a pleasure to come back and talk to you guys. I'm always appreciative and always willing to come back and talk and help out however I can. I'll just kind of talk a little bit about like my day-to-day prior to Kevin getting here. Pretty much my day-to-day role in working with talent, whether it be 6 p.m. show group, Daily Wager, college football, college basketball, raps. I try to approach it the same way. I think the biggest thing is obviously every talent has a different, type of attitude and how they want specific things presented. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has helped me along the way is figuring out which each specific talent wants, not necessarily put them in a box of like, oh, hey, I did this for X talent last week, so you should expect it to get it the same way. I approach every time I get a chance to work with a new talent that I've never worked with, depending on what the assignment is, I try to check in with them and say, hey, how is it, can I best help you? Our jobs as researchers are to make the talent sound smarter, and help them out as best we can. Most notably, like speaking of and working with Kevin, a lot of times they have really, really good ideas. They just need us to kind of help them mold ideas and make sure what it is that they are most passionate or want to talk about is, what they're seeing with their eye, with their journalistic eye and different things like that, making sure like what they're seeing in numbers are saying kind of are in sync and match up. 6 p.m. show group, that's the first time that I had a chance to work with Kevin on a daily basis. And he's always been great to work with, really super easy. He pretty much knows how he wants things. He'll let me know specifically like, hey, can I get a nugget for X, out of each commercial break or doing a bump for a game promo or different things like that. Like, hey, what's the best stat you can give me on X? Or he'll just trust me to him, the best information, the best note. The good thing, like I said, I worked with him starting on the 6 p.m. Sports Center a couple summers ago. And then last season when I got to work with him for ABC Raps for college football, it was a semi-seamless transition. College football is a little more hectic on Saturdays just because like on ABC, we have maybe a game at noon, the 4 p.m. game maybe starts at the next midday game starts at either 3:30 or 4:30, and then we have a nighttime game. So pretty much we have like a set structure of like, all right, during the first halftime, we're gonna maybe pop a couple highlights from the early game, look at what's going on around the country, and then look ahead to our later slate of games or the biggest game of the day on our air on ABC. So what I generally do is obviously I'll have ideas of different things that I think can work. I send to him, the producer, the director, and the other analyst, Booger McFarland. I send them ideas on either Wednesday or Thursday leading into Saturday, like, hey, here's the notes that you should know heading into our games this weekend. Here's some graphics that I think could work and help present the best information. But ideally, on Saturdays when we're in a fire drill and kind of letting things kind of happen organically throughout the day, because obviously, you don't know the outcome of a game until it happens. So all throughout the day, I'm generally working with Kevin, in constant communication with him, talking to him about, what is it that you want to talk about? For instance, last weekend, we were going to talk about the Ohio State Oregon game. Yes, the game was on Fox, but it was still one of the biggest games of the weekend. And so, what Kevin wanted to do, I put together a couple notes on the game, Oregon, first Pac-12 team to beat a non-conference opponent, a top 5 non-conference opponent on the road since it had been like 40 years. Ohio State first loss to Oregon had been 9-0 in the series entering Saturday. Ryan Day's first loss as a head coach in a regular season game. So I put together 4 notes on that. And then I walked over to Kev while we were probably early first quarter of our midday game. And he's like, I like what you have here. He's like, but maybe we can do it more, maybe we can use both logos, because it seems like we're talking more about Ohio State as opposed to talking about like Oregon winning. So, like we that kind of banter where it's like, hey, it's not like, hey, this is what you have to do, this is what's going on. It's like, all right, I take his feedback, go back to the drawing board, cook up another graphic with some of the same notes. It's just kind of more inclusive of, talking about Oregon as opposed to just specifically the things that Ohio State didn't do to win. And so he's like, yep, I like this. This works. It's inclusive of both games. I think I titled the graphic like Oregon, Ohio State game recap or something like that. And I literally just hit 4 bullet points. I think 2 for Oregon, or Oregon in the Pac-12, and then like 2 for Ohio State or something like that. And we ran that full screen. I'd say the week prior working with him, we wanted to cook up something on Bryce Young. Like obviously Bryce Young was getting his first career start. He threw for 300 plus yards. It's like, all right, we already know he's got the most pass yards, most pass touchdowns for Alabama quarterback in a debut. But how else can we kind of best sell this without just putting up a blanket full screen of, okay, Bryce Young, 21 to 27, 344 yards, 4 pass TDs, and then bullet the 2 notes. So Kev had an idea like, hey, let's look at the first career starts with Alabama of the previous, 3 quarterbacks. Obviously, the previous 3 guys are Mac Jones, Tua, and Jalen Hurts. All of them are playing in the NFL right now. So that full screen was like, hey, first career starts, last 4 Alabama quarterbacks. You see Bryce Young, you're like, all right, like and he did it against a top 25 team. It wasn't, a Mercer or, East Tennessee State or a team like that. Like he did it against Miami. So that's kind of what my job is, to kind of help best set up things for him. I write copy, especially on SportsCenter a lot. But Kev will tweak it. I kind of try to learn the various nuances that certain talent have when writing copy. Ideally when I do write it, they'll come in, midday, late afternoon, and maybe tweak what I wrote to make it sound more like them, or, give a better, a better close or a better intro. But for the most part, Kev usually, gives me leeway to kind of write things as I see them. I know they read like an Iowa State preview, looking ahead to the big matchup this weekend, and he pretty much read it. I think it was Sunday that they did the preview. He pretty much read it word for word. Oh, look who's here. Sorry. Do you guys have any questions for me before I toss it over? Sorry.
Can you guys see me?
No.
Can you now?
If you've got a question,
I'm joking. Yes, we can see you, Kevin.
All right, good deal.
So-
Good deal.
So let me tell you this really quick story here. So our Saturday producer, Robert Limley, he has this thing where he talks to Kevin wanting to be in front of the camera the entire day. So normally on ABC Raps, we have 3 talent. Usually it's Kevin, Booger, and last year was Mark Sanchez. He's obviously with Fox now. So I texted Rob before this. I was like, hey, who's our 3rd talent? He's like, you. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, it's not me. I was like, who is it? He's like, no, like you. And I'm like, Rob, like, stop it. Like, who's the 3rd? He's like, no, we'll just do more on cams to Kev. Like, he'll love that. So needless to say, Kev is not camera shy at all. But I love the guy. I appreciate him doing this for me. Thank you so much for taking your time out to do this. And Kev, one of the best guys I've had a chance to work with at ESPN. I'd probably definitely put him in top 5. He might be 3 talent I've worked with. You're skating that fine line, but I love you. I appreciate you. But no further ado, Kevin Negandhi.
Yo, I appreciate it. And by the way, I've worked with Rob Lemley for 15 years, and that's what you do. You when you're working with somebody for 12 to 14 hours, you get punch drunk, and you go through the years, and you just basically the entire to make the day go fast. The entire day features just let's just say non-PC jokes going back and forth the entire afternoon into the night. And it's always been like that. But you know what? Here's the key. We've got chemistry. We're really passionate. We understand that nothing's ever personal. I mean, that example is a perfect segue for me to explain kind of what my job's about. My job is specifically about delivering as a team. And Gil is part of our team, and all of us have an equal say on making sure the production value of what we do on the air comes across as the best that we can actually present to anybody. And one of the cool things about ESPN, I always like it. It's a sports cliche here, but if you're a quarterback, the quarterback gets the headlines. Tom Brady got the headlines at the Super Bowl, but the reality is that defensive front is the reason why they won the Super Bowl, right? Patrick Mahomes gets all the headlines, but the reality is Patrick Mahomes' offensive line was beat up. If you're not playing like a team, if everybody is an individual and not buying in, you could fall apart production value-wise on TV doing anything. And I think that transfers to, radio, production, film, any type of media content. You can't do it by yourself. I know a lot of people in front of a camera think, the attitude is it's about me. No, I can't do my job without Gil, setting me up for success with, a graphic or a stat, to help the viewer. I can't do my job without, Lem producing it, where I have a say. We have a say on what makes sense, on where to go to make the show make sense, on why we're going to the game. A perfect example is, we did a highlight reel on the B block on Saturday night, and we had originally Alabama, then Auburn, then something. And I was like, whoa, we've got to move Alabama down and make sure we have Auburn up right after the Penn State game. And the only reason why is because Penn State and Auburn are playing next week on ABC. And that's kind of like us coming together and putting together a show. You need that. And so the value of a team concept goes a long way. I can't understate that because when you work long hours, this is not a 9-to-5 job. We're not 9-to-5 people. If we were, we wouldn't be in this class, right? We're all type A personalities, and you got to understand that you come in and you work till the job's done. Some days that's 5 hours. Some days that's 18 hours. Some days that's 12 hours. You just do it till the job's done. And with that in mind, you've got to have this concept that I can't do it by myself. I need people to help me. I literally just came off the set, and we were on SportsCenter from 6 to 8. And listen, there's a lot of stuff you're relying on: teamwork, a producer, coordinating producer, a director, an AD, segment producers. You're relying on a researcher, all of that stuff, and then 4 cameramen and women in the studio. All of that stuff has to come together all at once, and it's pretty cool putting a show together and watching all that. But in the end, all you do is watch the quarterback, right? In the end, all you see is somebody on camera and say, that's the glamorous life, right? Somebody writes for them. No, nobody writes for us. We write our own stuff. At least, I would say 98% of us, because that's why we got into the business. We're passionate fans who love what we do. And I want you guys to understand, I'm not sure what the talking points are specifically in this class, Gil. And if you want to keep it open to Q&A, or if there's something you want me to expand on, I can do that, because each class that I talk to is different. They have different goals, different mindsets. I can kind of pull some of my experiences and my thought process, and also share my experience in college leading up to getting that first job, which led to the second job, which led me being out of TV and done TV with TV at the age of 27, and then coming back and then finding my love again and getting to ESPN and my dream job at 31. And now this is the week I'm celebrating 15 years here. So there's a lot of different things and different ways I can go, Gil. So I'll put the ball in your court. You're producing this segment.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about, I think it was definitely an open-ended, whatever it was on your heart to speak about. But obviously, talking about how you got to where you are, and like you said, you're out of TV and from college on up. Definitely, we can start there, and then I think the class, and then we have some other questions in the chat that'll come in.
Great, because I want to make this an organic process. This is not me just talking the whole time. So aside from Lem's comments about the camera always being about me. So yeah, I originally went to Syracuse. I had the crazy idea as a 14-year-old Indian kid who was watching SportsCenter one night saying, I want to be the first Indian American on SportsCenter. And that was in 1989. I remember everything about that moment. And, when you're a young teenager, you have ridiculous dreams and you think anything is possible. And so at 18, I went to Syracuse because I thought every great broadcaster goes to Syracuse, like the Bob Costases of the world, Dick Stockton, Marv Albert, Mike Tirico. I wanted to follow their footsteps. I realized in one semester, Syracuse wasn't the school for me. I realized early on I could not deal with the winters. I hated it. But I also looked around. I said I wasn't going to get experience, and I wanted experience. That's the key here in this business. And being from Philly, right outside Philly, I decided to transfer to Temple. It was the best decision I ever made in my career for me, because it fit for me. And what I did was I got involved. Like within a year, I was writing for the school newspaper as the college sports editor. And then, I was calling radio play-by-play games for women's basketball for 3 years. Then I was doing stuff with the TV station. I did 5 internships. I was in the locker room. I was actually 3 rows back on the Allen Iverson crossover to Michael Jordan. You guys were not alive when that happened. And then I'm in the locker room with Jordan, Pippen, and all those guys at the age of 20, 21 years old. And I'm gaining that experience that I couldn't have gotten at Syracuse. I was getting it in Market 4 at the time in Philadelphia. So I just did everything. The most important thing for me in college was learning how to write. If you learn how to write, it gets easier with anything you do, because I could turn my papers in on deadline within 2 hours, because it was like I'm on deadline like I'm at the newspaper, right? If you can learn how to write a lead story and turn something around, that is essential to the next step, where in radio, you're now painting a picture, right? Play by play for 3 years. I'm painting the visual for people who are listening at home. I'm learning to make my mistakes. Then by the time I got the TV, it was so much easier because I already learned how to write on deadline. I can also paint visuals, but I don't have to do as much because TV does it for me. So when you can mix all of that up and then develop relationships, I was really lucky. I was right place, right time, developing contacts in market for doing a high school sports show. By the time I'm a senior at Temple, that was on the Fox affiliate right before the Eagles pregame show. So we had a big audience there, and that helped me get a tape together. Now you guys, I think, put together reels on YouTube, but for me, it was get the VHS tape together that looked really clean so I could send it out to everybody. So I had a really strong tape in my mind, and I applied to 50 jobs. I remember 50 plus jobs, and I got rejected by everybody. And this took about 3 to 4 months. No. And, you know, it's hard at the age of 22 where you're feeling good about yourself and you're getting rejected, and you start to like internalize it personally. Many times it's not about you. Many times it's about the job situation. Specifically, maybe they have somebody in house for that job already. They just posted it. They're looking for a certain look. Many of these are small markets where in 1998, no one looked like me in a small market doing sports. There were not many Indian Americans. So breaking through in these small markets was extremely challenging. And I remember I got a call from Kennewick, Washington, and they asked me to do weather 3 days a week and on the weekends to do sports. And I was like, I'm taking the job. I went to one of my mentors who was on the air in Philly. He was a bigwig in Philly at the time. And I was like, I'm taking the job. And he's like, why? I said, because I need to get on the air every day. I need to make mistakes. I need my first job. I was super hungry and aggressive about things. And he was just like, do you think you're good enough to become a sportscaster every day? And I said, yeah. He goes, you know nothing about the weather. What the hell are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'll just green screen. I'll point to a warm front, a cold front. I'll freaking figure it out. Right? Like, I need to get on TV. And he goes, if you believe in yourself, have patience. That's all that matters. But also you got to have the confidence that something's going to come your way. He goes, you're good enough. You got to understand these small markets. You just need one person. And this was, again, 1998. This is before you guys were even born. So this was, before dating on an app or website. So I envisioned this like going into the club at 22. I was, I enjoyed my early 20s in Philadelphia. And I envisioned this going to the club, and you want to get a number by the end of the night. And it did not matter how many women said no. All you needed is one yes, right? And I envisioned that with my job. I translated that to my job because I was like, who cares about the rejection? I didn't get rejected a lot, by the way. But who cares about the rejection? You just need one number by the end of the night. That's it. You need one. And that actually helped me. It helped me process the rejection from the jobs or not hearing back from jobs. And I'll never forget, I said no to the Kennewick, Washington job. And within the next week, I got 3 job offers. One was in Macon, Georgia. Another one was in North Dakota. And then the last one was from Kirksville, Missouri. Now, I said yes to Kirksville, Missouri, because one of my best friends was in that market a year earlier as the sports guy. The girl I was dating was in that market on the air as well. So it like worked out perfectly for me because I had already known some people there. But I had no idea about Kirksville, Missouri. And listen, I had never been to the Midwest. I'm a guy in the Northeast. So we drove out there, me and my dad, and we're just cornfields left and right. And at one point I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And funny story about my father. It's a separate thing. I won't even bring that up because it's not related to us. But my dad was just like, what the hell am I going to do with my Indian boy in the middle of the Midwest? And so like the first night we go out with the entire TV crew, And this just shows you how small it was. There were 220 markets at the time. This was market 199. So it was super small. We go out there, and it's a college town. They had 2 colleges in this town, Truman State, and there was an osteopathic school there. And we're in this bar, and the entire crew took me out, a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds. All of us are young and hungry to get in the business and like cut our teeth. And there's about 20 of us, and I look around, and the owner of the bar, he's bald with lamb chops, and I look around, there's Elvis everywhere, and he steps up in the bar in this $20,000 Elvis suit. I'm not kidding, it was 20K. He would get some of these originals that Elvis used to have, and he's up there singing on the bar. And I look up, and I'm like, what the hell did I just do? Why am I here? And the guy next to me was a reporter, and he was born in Iowa. Turned out he's a pastor now. So he was never exposed to people that look like me, people who had tans that were not, African-American Black people. So he looks at me and he goes, "What's it like being the only Black man in town, Kevin?" And I was like, "What?" And people obviously people at the table were dying. And there was one girl that was completely embarrassed and looked at me. It was just like, "I'm just so sorry. Craig has never met anybody that looks like you that's on TV." And I was just like, okay, so this is what it's going to be like. I got to tell you, the Midwest was amazing. I spent 13 months there. My first live shot, our truck was a converted ambulance. They drove me out, and the sports director did this as a joke. He's actually still a friend. He's in the mortgage business now. He sent me out to a rodeo. And I was like, what the hell am I going to be doing at a live rodeo, right? And there were legit clowns everywhere. It's my first live shot. And he tosses out to me live, and I'm like, well, Jeremy, I'm surrounded by cowboys, and I'm the only Indian. That's how I started my career on live TV. And it was like one of those moments, right? And then like a few weeks later, I made my debut on the air as an anchor. And this was in the middle of July. It was super hot. They had no AC in the studio, so they're running fans. I mean, it's super hot in the Midwest. And they had a prompter pedal that you had to run, but next to the pedal was this little button. And if you hit the button, it goes backwards. I have a size 12 shoe, and I'm on the set. Like Niagara Falls, I am dripping in sweat because it's hot. I am nervous. They do this whole build-up intro to me. The 2 anchors, including one who was just like 30 years in the business, well known in that town. And they're, "Oh, we got our new sports guy, Kevin Negandhi." And I turn to the camera, and my big ass toe hit the small button, and my prompter goes completely backwards. And I've got to ad-lib this entire segment. And this woman, this prestigious woman in this town, is suddenly underneath the desk like this. Head underneath the desk. You can imagine how uncomfortable that was, trying to fix the pedal while we're on live TV and I'm ad-libbing the entire 3.5-minute segment. And I got to tell you, everybody has their own story. And I walked off the set saying, if I could survive that, I could literally do anything, because that was the most ridiculous, opening introduction, live TV ever. I ad-libbed the entire segment because I just knew the content. I knew, Jordan was playing the Jazz and the Bulls set up. Again, it was it was just set up perfectly for me. And I was tested. So I bring these stories up to you so you guys understand that everybody's journey here at ESPN. I go down the hall, Matthew Berry, the fantasy guy's next door, Al Duncan's next door here. We all have so many different type of stories where some people think, well, I've got to do this to get to this, to get to that, and A gets me to B, it gets me to C, and that'll get me eventually to Z. It doesn't work like that. You will take A to B, jump to H, fall back to F, then back to A, and restart again. There are different paths for all of us. Just find the journey that makes sense and feels most comfortable for you. Because again, Elle Duncan, she was in radio in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and did not have the route of Sports Center anchor. I mean, went to Nesson, eventually got here, but she was a DJ in Atlanta. And honestly, I'm kind of jealous because that helped her tremendously when it came to ad-libbing and interviews when you're doing that stuff on a morning radio show and you're handling a variety of different personalities. So these life experiences all help you in so many situations where you don't understand now, but you know later on they're going to play a role. So that was like me at 23. And I got out of TV at 27. I completely burned out, didn't take care of myself. I thought I was done. I got back a year later after some things were taken care of with some personal issues in Philadelphia with my family. And I was in Florida. And 2 years later, I was doing a segment and it was like the NHL was in a lockout. I was interviewing Gary Thorne. Gary Thorne's wife came because she was with him and he lived in Sarasota. They came in the studio. I did the segment with him and Gary Thorne's wife was like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Why aren't you at a network, a national program?" And I was like, "Why? What do you mean?" By that time I'm 30. I'm like, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm building a house. I got all this other stuff going on. I'm by the beach. And she was like, "You need to talk to somebody in New York. You need to get out of here." And I was like, I had an agent in the past. And I was like, I'm good to go. I don't need an agent. 6 months later, I called her up and I said, "All right, so what do you got? I just want to hear what you have to say." She's like, "I've got an agent in New York City. Just talk to him on the phone. He really likes you." So I called the agent up. This is 2006 in January. And I'm like, "Hey, why do agents are there to make money. So I'm like, why are you interested in me? Like, what do you want?" And he's like, "I watched 10 seconds of your tape, Kev. You're really good." And he goes, "Give me a chance, handshake agreement. We had never met. And we're doing this on the phone. Handshake agreement. Give me 6 months. If I get you a job at a regional network or, ESPN or Fox, great, we move on. If not, we move on." So I said, "What do I got to lose?" And then 3 months later, he got me an interview for a regional network that was starting up, which is now called Masson in the Baltimore, D.C. area, Mid-Atlantic Sports. But they had not started. So they had closed down production before they started. So he had got me a call there and they were like, we're interested in Kevin being a host, but right now we're delaying our production. We're going to have to wait a few months. So my agent at the time called me up and goes, "Hey, I got you a shot, but they're delaying production. We'll just keep on trying." And I was like, "Great. Listen, it's been 3 months and you already got me a nibble." 2 months later, he calls me up and goes, "Listen, you want to go to Bristol?" And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "I got a tryout for you for ESPN News. You're competing against 7 people. What do you think?" And I was, my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, she was in TV as well. I came home, I saw her, and I was like, even if I don't get the job, my dream is to get to ESPN. So on their dime, they're paying for it. I get to fly up there. I get to try out. I get to stay overnight, walk around campus. Who knows if I'll ever get this chance again? What do I got to lose? And I'm going to put them in a position where I'm going to do so well that if I don't get the job, the person they hire better be damn freaking good because I will live with no regrets. So I go up there and it's crazy. I remember everything about that day specifically. And you come in at 8 a.m, you meet a producer you've never talked to before. They say, "All right, you've got 2 hours. We'll see you at 10 o'clock. You got 2 hours to write a 10-minute show. You write it with the producer, but you're writing everything. You get into makeup. You go in the studio. You basically do an audition for 10 minutes. You're doing a show. And after that, it's probably more nerve-wracking. You go into 6 interviews for 30 minutes with high-end executives, and you're walking into these rooms and they've got 30 Emmys on their wall. And, I did a little research. My agent got me the 6 names and I knew, oh, that's the head of NBA. That's the head of the NFL. That's the head of ESPN News. That's the head of Outside the Lines. That's the head of the 6 p.m. Sports Center. That's the head of ESPN, So you're going through all this stuff and, you have no idea how you're going to do. And you have no idea about the other people that are competing and later on auditioning over this 3-week trial. I felt great. I remember driving home from the airport and just saying, if I don't get the job, man, at least it's a bucket list. Check it off. ESPN on their dime at age 31 flew me up there. And I felt like I kicked ass. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my agent, and he was like, ready to go to Bristol? And that was it. And that was 15 years ago. And this week was 15 years ago was when I made my debut at ESPN, or when I came here at ESPN. So it's been an amazing ride. It's been upside down. I've done a variety of different things. I've been active. I don't get complacent. I've been really lucky to do some big stories, from covering the NBA Finals to the World Series to being at the Super Bowl to the Stanley Cup to, interviewing a lot of pretty cool people, people that I looked up to, working with people that were idols of mine and now calling them teammates. Like it, I'm pretty blessed, pretty lucky, and that my journey continues. Here's the thing, though. I will say one thing about this at the end. I'm 46 years old. Yeah, I'm an old head, but I'm still hungry. Like, I've got to be hungry because there's somebody like you guys coming in ready to take my job, right? So you get to a point where it's back to a sports analogy where you're the quarterback in that room, but they draft somebody else and he's a first round pick. I've got to stay sharp. I've got to follow up like Aaron Rodgers did last year when Jordan Love's now in the room and you came off a bad year, and I've got to have an MVP season. That never changes. There are certain dreams I still want and certain guys here I look up to, but there's also certain people underneath that don't have as much experience, but I also know that they want the job that I'm doing right now. So I've got to stay sharp every day. I've got to also make sure that I'm not just doing one job. That is SportsCenter, a phenomenal job on 6 p.m., the 6 p.m. flagship show, but I do college football on ABC. I was lucky enough to host the NBA draft. After, Monday and Tuesday nights during the fall and winter, I go right into across the studio to do college basketball at halftime. I'm working 12 to 15 hour days. I've got to always stay sharp. Adam Schefter and Woj, those guys, they can break so many stories, but the next story is the next big one. They've got to stay sharp. So I bring this all up to you guys because you got to still stay on top regardless of where you're at. Because once you reach a certain place, you've got to find a way to re-challenge yourself to keep on going and create higher goals and higher goals and higher goals. And that's the only way you get better each and every day. So I've given you guys a lot of word vomit. So let's open it up to questions. And Gil, why don't you lead the way?
All right. So yeah, Kev, I have one off your point about staying sharp and wearing so many hats. How do you go about preparing yourself day to day for the various jobs? Because obviously on Saturdays you'll be preparing for college football, but how do you go about preparing day to day to make sure you're in the know about everything that you need to be in the know about?
I'm watching and reading everything. Twitter is a huge thing. It's who you follow. Like, I'm constantly following beat writers in every city on specific sports. If I need something, I'll lean on a researcher. Hey, follow up. Can you help me out with one thing? Like, I got a podcast for college football with Booger McFarland and Joey Galloway. Last year I was with Herb Street and Pollock. So you're always adapting to people that you're with. You're always aware of their personalities. You're also making sure that you're covering them. So this morning, before I'm talking to Booger, I'm doing about 45 minutes of my own research. What are my topics? Where am I going? Let me look up, the Texas quarterback situation. What happened over the weekend? Let me follow up on what I saw in the A&M game. Let me make sure I have the right research on Penn State. How about USC and the breaking news with the coach and who are the head coach candidates that you can look at? You're constantly doing that. Another thing, I'm relying on my contacts. When I had a week's notice to do the NBA draft. So I found out that I was hosting the NBA draft on ABC, the first time it's ever on ABC, in a week. And it was like, okay, time to make some phone calls. I called multiple people that were connected through the NBA and college basketball, and I'm picking their brains about Cade Cunningham. I know enough about Cade Cunningham as the Oklahoma State star, but I'm getting more information that I'm not going to get through an article. Then I'm basically doing homework. It's like, all right, I've got like 60 guys to study. Because in the first round, you could be surprised by anybody. And I'm pouring through notes and stories that are written in October and November. And, what's the latest with Jalen Green? Like, I'm trying to get all that information. I also love doing this stuff. It depends on the sport. Like, I'm passionate about Philadelphia, so I'm going to know more about the Phillies and the NL East and all the other teams. I'm passionate about, fantasy football and the Eagles. So I'm going to know, what Jameis Winston did against the Packers and have that understanding. So I nerd out about it. You can try to fool people, but eventually you're going to be exposed. Like tonight, Elle and I had breaking news with DeMarcus Lawrence, breaking his foot, and he's going to be out for a few weeks. The backstory to this story is not so much about the injury. It's look at everything that's building up with the Cowboys, with Gallup being out with the calf strain, with La'el Collins being suspended for 5 days, 5 weeks, Randy Gregory now on the COVID list. That's me understanding the context of the Cowboys, not just one story. That's a lot of work. And that's requiring you to put in the work, because if not, you will be exposed during breaking news and live situations. And that happens a lot, especially in our time slot at 6 o'clock.
Perfect. Got a question in the chat. When it comes to podcasting, whether sports related news, entertainment, what's the most important thing to do? Plus, how is podcasting different from radio or TV?
I like podcasting a lot because you're going to get a lot of candid conversation. Nothing like, deep into a conversation. If you're listening to the right podcast, you'll get a nugget or two where you're like, oh, that's some good backstory on that. I had no idea. The best podcast people are writers because they get to empty the notebook, in my mind. So you've got to kind of target, each person's different. You've got to kind of target how you want to go about listening and wasting your time. When I say wasting your time, because that means, if there's a sport you like, let's just say it's the NFL. There are a gazillion different podcasts, and you've got to sort through a lot of them to figure out, all right, this is the one where I know I'm going to be better off spending 30 to 40 minutes every single week, or maybe 2 or 3 times a week to get information. Or is this just, a couple people clowning around that have no idea, but what about their personality? So it all depends on what you want to get out of a podcast. I really enjoy smart, thoughtful podcasts. Like ESPN Daily is really great with Pablo Torre. You're going to get a lot of hard-hitting stuff, but also context and conversation. There's a variety of other ones that I listen to, when it comes to college football and the NFL and fantasy, and even like baseball card collecting and sorting through all that. The NBA, listening to Woj's podcast, Adam Schefter's podcast. That's the stuff that I like, because I nerd out with those guys. They're insiders. They're going to give me something more. So I would say use your time wisely, but in the beginning, try everything and find out what works for you. Is following this person on Twitter going to benefit me? Is, having this subscription to a website going to benefit me? Is, following this podcast every week going to benefit me? What is the most valuable time for me spent, and then focus on those specific things.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to the room for questions.
All right, if we want to do, walk, or are we doing a stand up, or you want to
I think stand up, speak up.
Stand up, speak up. All right. Okay.
Wait. Stand up, speak up, but introduce yourself too. Say your name first.
Okay, my name is DeAndre Head, and I wanted to ask you a question. What set you apart when you was working at ESPN for the different people who wanted the job?
What set you apart? It's a really good question. Being myself, like not trying to be like anybody. I had 2 hard lessons. For example, when I first got into TV, one of my mentors was like, Kev, you got a really good voice. Don't try to be a broadcaster, because in the beginning, you're this is my broadcasting voice. And he was like, don't do that. He's like, just be yourself. During my tryout, my audition here at ESPN, I actually was with an executive who he's no longer here, but he is like so experienced, that he was phenomenal to me. He didn't have to be. And he was like, I like your tape a lot. He goes, what I liked about it was you were genuine. You weren't trying to be shticky. You weren't trying to be somebody else. And he goes, we've got a lot of those type of people here. He's like, don't be that, be you. And it takes time to find out what you're most comfortable with. I can tell you, I watch certain people and I take from them. Oh, I like that. I like that. I like that. Nothing wrong with that, because when you watch like a basketball player, they want to say, I want Kobe's this. I want LeBron's this. I want Kyrie's handles. I want Olajuwon's, footwork. You could take from people what you like from them and then build something that makes you comfortable in your own space. So I've taken stuff from people where I'm like, I like how Van Pelt delivers everything, because Van Pelt, there is no filter with Van Pelt. And Van Pelt's always a reminder. By the way, he's freaking incredible. But Van Pelt's incredible because I'm getting Scott. I'm not getting, hey, I'm SportsCenter anchor Scott Van Pelt, and this is my show. And I think that's why it connects to a lot of people. I love stuff that I get from Reese Davis, because Reese, no matter what, he's never going to back down. But at the same time, Reese also knows the job is to make sure people around him are elevated. So that to me was always, it's not about me. It's about making sure the person next to me looks great. And that's my job. And if I make that person next to me look great, then I'm going to shine as well. I love stuff that I work with Hannah Storm for 5 years, the legendary Hannah Storm in the morning on SportsCenter for 5 years. I learned so much from her because she was just such a pro, and she had been through all the battles, and I learned how to handle things and how to deal with breaking news. And you're in a commercial break and there's literally 2 minutes and they're giving you like, hey, listen, this story just came down. Can you turn it around? You've got 2 minutes to write it and you got to deliver it on camera right now. And I knew how to do that. I just watched another person. And I was like, I like how she does it. I'm going to take a little bit of that. So what I would say to anybody in this is find your voice, find what makes you comfortable, because over time, this entire room here can smell who's authentic and who's fake. And over time, if you are fake, you're not going to connect with your viewer long-term, to a point where when you pop on camera, they're going to be like, oh God, this phony, I don't need to hear from him again. If you're authentic, they're going to know, all right, I'm getting the real deal. So for me on the air, I always say this. I don't have catchphrases. I have some things I like to say, but what you're going to get is energy. You're always going to have me be fair. You're going to get emotion. You're going to get basically the fan version on the air who's a little more polished. But at the same time, I'm going to be relatable to you at home. That's all I care about. Because if you can't relate to me, then I'm going to lose you as a viewer. And I'm going to find a way to do one thing that Stuart Scott did better than anybody. Give you a nugget of information for every story. If you ever watch Stuart, if you watch Stuart's old highlights, his catchphrases were the best, right? His delivery was the best. But what made Stuart Scott phenomenal in this space was Stuart always made sure you walked away smarter after the highlight. And that's my job. That's why I tap into Gil. Gil, give me something. That's me doing research on Twitter, finding a nugget. So when the viewer's watching a highlight, they're not just getting a highlight, they're getting some context and perspective, and they're going to get the energy from me.
Yeah. All right. So my name is Brandon Sanders. Biggest question I have is, what was the biggest challenge you faced moving through the ranks?
Being Indian American, breaking that barrier. There's again, when I got on TV in 1998, I was the second Indian American to do local sports TV in American television history. There's only one guy named Raj Mathai that was before me who came 2 years earlier. He's now a news anchor in San Jose. So just no one looked like me in 1998 delivering sports. So going through a lot of that, dealing with stereotypes, going overboard to sell to the viewer that you could trust me on knowledge. When I came to ESPN, I heard a lot. I mean, I got nasty emails. When I joined social media in 2009, I got a lot of terrorist comments or what the hell do you know about sports? You're from India. Get off my TV. So what I had to do was work harder than the white guy or the white girl or the black guy or the black girl next to me because no one looked like me on TV. I was the first Indian American at ESPN on TV. So I had to get through that. So as a result, I had to build with the viewer credibility that some people automatically have no matter what. And that made me work harder. Like, I still come into work with this attitude like I'm a 6th-round draft pick and I've got to earn my job, even 15 years at ESPN, because who knows who's watching me. It could be their first experience, and I've got to prove it to them that what you're going to do and what you're going to see is not going to be a waste of time.
Yeah, we might be able to combine these two. How does social media affect you as a reporter from getting and reporting the truth and breaking a story? And then you talked about writing is important for podcasting. Can you explain that a little more? Is it the pre-show notes, questions, et cetera?
Yeah, so we'll do the second one first. Writing for a podcast, like do an intro and write some bullet points on questions that you want to ask, so you're prepared. Don't go into a podcast, I'm going to wing it. That's the dumbest thing in the world, because you're wasting the listener's time, because they're going to just basically bail, because they're going to snip you out and say, all right, he's winging it or she's winging it. Go into a podcast saying, all right, I have a background and understanding of a few things. I'm going to ad lib, but at the same time, I'm going to back up my information with some stuff I've done. I've done some research, and my questions are going to be to the point, and they're going to be direct, and they're going to be simple and short to get good answers, right? That's the point of a podcast, and engaging another person when you're talking to them back and forth. As for social media is a challenge sorting through it all, especially when you're on the air and you have breaking news. So there was something last week that we had breaking news on, and I had to clear it with our news editors. So it was just like, we're in a commercial break, and I'm like, oh, you guys see this? This story just happened. Do you see what just happened? And they'll say, producer will be like, yeah, send it to us. I'll send to the producer the link. The producer then will send it to the news editor. They'll vet the story out with one of our insiders before we could report it. That stuff happens all the time. Injuries, trades, breaking news, firings, hirings. You've got to vet the whole thing out. But you know, on a commercial break, you're just sliding through and, oh, this just happened. I mean, like, I did day one of free agency in the NBA. I got Woj, doing stuff. We've got a lot of breaking news. I'm seeing stuff breaking constantly. And in a commercial break, I'm like, yo, this just happened. This just happened. And in my ear, the producer's like, yeah, we can confirm it. Just go with it. I'm on the air now, ad-libbing everything I just saw, right? Giving credit to who deserved it and broke the news, but you're responding and reacting in real time. And that's how social media helps. But you've got to make sure you have somebody vet that information out before you just go with something.
My name is Travis Hicks, and from your 15 years so far at ESPN, what's been either one of your favorite stories to do or your favorite story that you've covered over your years?
Wow, so there's a handful of them. Interviewing Allen Iverson the night of the Ben Simmons draft. I did SportsCenter that morning here, drove down because the condition was the Sixers and Iverson were not going to do the interview with anybody unless I was down there. So that made it interesting. So I had to drive 4.5 hours. I got there outside this big crowd. Police had to basically look at my car because I had to park on the side of the street, jump in and do this interview. And the producer was like, all right, listen, I'm giving you 3 minutes. And I told the producer, I said, 3 minutes? I've got Allen Iverson. I'm not doing 3 minutes. I just drove down here. We're doing something. Don't worry, we're good. We went 9.5 minutes. The producer never said a word. Iverson almost cried twice and hugged me afterwards. It was a really good interview. And Allen was phenomenal, like phenomenal. And him and I had known each other, and he trusted me to open up. Eagles won the Super Bowl. I got the chance to host the parade. That was my dream. I did it on ESPN. Are you kidding me? Hosting the parade in the city of Philadelphia. I got to do the NFL draft in Philadelphia. That was an incredible moment. Here's the thing. So the draft happened in Philly. I did a bunch of stuff with SportsCenter that day. And then they were like, we need you back on the morning SportsCenter the next morning. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah. So I drove 4.5 hours after I left the draft at 10 o'clock, me and Maria Taylor actually were in a car to get to my car, and I drove up. I parked out here. I slept in my car for 2 hours, got up, and then did the morning show from 7 to 10 on SportsCenter. Got a call from the president of ESPN at the time and said, just thank you for doing what you did. And I was really proud of that. Like, just, hey, they need me. I answer, let's go. I'll say the final story about my favorite thing with ESPN was I got invited to the White House because I do a lot of stuff for Special Olympics, and ESPN's tied in with Special Olympics. And I host the World Games for ESPN Special Olympics and the USA Games. So we got invited to the White House when Obama was there, and it was 200 people were in this like dining room. Celebrities, Special Olympic athletes, their parents, they were being honored that night. And we had the chance to go meet the president. And listen, the Secret Service is everywhere, and you're in the White House, right? And you got to go shake the, president's hand, and you shake the first lady's hand. You keep on walking because they're like, make it fast, just keep on going. So you're like, okay. So I'm with like 80 ESPN executives. It's my turn. I go out to shake. I had everything in my head. Was going to say real quick. Go out to shake the president's hand. I said, Mr. President, it is an honor to meet you. My name is, and he goes, hold on, Kevin. You don't need to introduce me. We watch you all the time. Michelle, don't we watch Kevin all the time? And I'm like, hi, First Lady. I'm Kevin Negandhi, She's like, yes. Yeah. And she's like, he loves sports. He has the TV on all the time. And, listen, I'm sure somebody told him that. I'm sure all that played out. He's the president of the United States. Like, he's got a lot of other things going on. And that was just one of those cool moments. Like, you're not even aware of what you do, that a lot of people are watching you. And, me and the president had a moment a little bit later on that night, which was just really it was just cool. And it gave me real proper perspective of you love what you do. I'm lucky to do what I do. I'm passionate. I will outwork everybody. There are people probably more talented than me. I know that for a fact, but I will outwork everybody. And you get that quick acknowledgement from somebody. It's just like, well, that was pretty damn cool. And good luck topping that for the rest of my life. And that was one of those moments.
Ken, real quick, related to your experiences as an Indian American working in the industry, how do you find balance between the entertainment part and the need for societal issues to be discussed?
It's a really, really good question. You pick and choose your spots. There are moments where you could speak out, and there were many times on SportsCenter where I spoke out, but at the same time, you have to serve the audience as well. And so you've got to provide facts during interviews, ask the right questions. And there were many instances last year where we were in positions where it's just like, okay, listen, there's a fine line here. We've got to be smart on how we handle it and who we talk to and what are the questions we're going to ask. But how do we make sure that we are still, we are still providing a service as journalists and aware that there's an entertainment product for certain things that we do when it comes to highlights and talking about sports stories. But when we're talking about, George Floyd, when we're talking about, what we saw throughout the country, you've got to be fully aware it's not about you. It's about making sure you're asking the right questions and presenting it in a way that is fair and factual. I can't stress that enough. Fair and factual. And if you're factual, then you're fair, because the truth doesn't bend. And I think often we come into these conversations that we see in this world, well, we got to hear both sides to any argument. No, well, in the end, if the truth is there is no both sides. It's the truth. And that is the fair and factual statement. And I think that's something we try to make sure we emphasize, at least I try to. What are the facts? Let's get to the facts. Let's make sure we are presenting the facts that way. And let's ask the fair questions as related to the facts whenever we have somebody on the air. So I think those are the most important things. Now, Twitter, I will say this. There's a fine line on what you could put out there, but at the same time, it is still my voice. And I'm going to speak out on certain things that I agree and don't agree with, right? But at the same time, I don't think my opinion needs to be in every single story. So you can get caught up in it on social media. You've got to be smart about when it's time to weigh in. And when you weigh in, make sure you have purpose on weighing in. Because there are people that you don't know or that are following you, and you'll find out later on that, wait a second, everybody's paying attention to everything you post. So you've got a responsibility to making sure you're truthful and fair to all the facts.
Good evening. My name is Brendan Tatimer. I'm more interested in the front office side of sports. I would love to be the GM of a championship franchise one day. I want to be the architect of a team like that. What kind of advice would you have as far as internships and what I should be looking for to get into that side of the sports industry?
Great question. As somebody that wanted to be a general manager if this TV thing didn't work, my suggestion would be understanding how salary caps, collective bargaining agreements, understanding law, taking law classes, that type of background will help you immensely. Understanding how to taking classes like this where you can communicate to people. Communicating is so important, right? And building relationships in this business. As for internships, I do every single internship I could at any type of pro or college level, or call agents and see if you could just do an internship and literally just get your foot in the door, do what is required of the internship, but build a relationship and ask, how do you do things? What do you do here? Can I do this on the side after I'm done all the internship work? That kind of stuff is how you kind of move up in the chain of a place. Like, there are so many. I worked in the mailroom stories to now I lead the company. I worked in the mailroom to now I'm the GM. I worked in sales to now I'm vice president of the team. All that stuff is just getting your foot in the door and understanding the layout of the organization and building relationships in that organization. But I would stress now more than ever, take as many classes as you can in understanding statistics and understanding finances, because those two play a huge role as in managing teams.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jeffrey Walker. My question is, do you think it's important to know every sport or just to focus on the sports that you are passionate about?
This depends on what you like, right? Like, it depends on what you want to do. Like, Sports Center, like, I've got to know everything about everything. That doesn't mean I've got to be passionate about tennis, but I've got to know a lot about tennis. That doesn't mean I've got to be passionate about golf, but I got to know a lot about golf. That doesn't mean I got to be passionate about, certain things. I still got to know a lot about it if I want to be a Sports Center anchor. It just depends. Like, if you want to focus on a sport, I've always believed that if you focus on a sport, you could be great at it, but it also can sometimes pigeonhole you to doing other things when you need to show in this industry now more than ever that you could be versatile. I mean, when I say versatile, 25 years ago when I was in college, versatile was writing for a newspaper, doing radio, doing TV. Now it's podcasts. Can you shoot things? Can you host? Can you film? Can you edit? Can you, do TV? Can you do radio? Can you understand a lot? That is a different type of versatility. And I bring that up to you now. If there's a sport you like and you're passionate about, go for it. But also be mindful of being versatile, because you may need those other sports if they ask you to do a job. Hence, hey, can you do weather in Kennewick, Washington? Yes. Get me a job,
Hi, Kevin. I'm Barrett Jones. At 27, you mentioned burnout, and it's been 15 years since
You've been at ESPN. What have you done to maintain, or I guess manage your burnout? So you
Really
don't-
good question, Barrett. So you will go through in this business, because again, we're all type A personalities. You will go through burnouts, I think, every 3 to 5 years, healthy or not. It's you're working crazy hours. Maybe that's not normal. That's me. And that's me talking to a lot of people. What has helped me, because I've gone through burnout at ESPN as well. What has helped me, especially in the pandemic, are a couple of things. Breaks, mental breaks. I meditate at least 10 minutes to 15 minutes a day. That has helped me a lot in the pandemic. I used to casually work out. I work out every day, 45 minutes, no matter what. That is just keeping me arms. That is keeping me mentally, sane. And that could be Peloton. That could be, physically, I'm just doing with weights. That's me playing basketball with my young kids. It's just keeping my brain active. I actually lost 15 pounds in the pandemic because it was like, I'm not going the other way. I'm not going to be depressed in this pandemic. I'm going to use it to my advantage, and I'm going to be vigilant about it. I also like to read. I should be reading more. So I do a lot. I like to travel. Obviously, you can't travel as much as you can in a pandemic, but I got into card collecting in the last year and a half, heavy into card collecting. If you look at my bank account, that gave me kind of like an outlet. So I would suggest to anybody here, find things to keep you occupied. Make sure your brain is stimulated outside of what you're doing. Take a deep breath. Be kind to yourself. Because if you're not kind to yourself, no one else will be.
Thank you.
I'm Ryan Pelon. I'm kind of a hockey guy. So you mentioned that you covered a lot of hockey and NHL events. So what kind of events did you?
Stanley Cup. I was lucky to be at the Stanley Cup when the Lightning won in 2004 and 5. Like it was a while back, but obviously with what I do now, I can't go to events because that belongs to guys like Butchergross, Levy, and Cohn. But I keep up with it because I love the Flyers. I also know John Cooper, the head coach of the Lightning, really well. So me and him keep in touch, and we like to go back and forth. So I stay close to the sport as much as possible. And that goes into being versatile because I love the NFL. I love college football. I love the NBA. I love college basketball. I love Major League Baseball. I love the NHL. It's just making sure each season I am up to date with everything and versatile regardless.
Kev, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Who's your favorite researcher?
Oh, man. So my favorite researcher on Saturdays during college football from 11 a.m. to midnight is Gil Bransford.
Wow.
No, Gil's great. We've got a handful of great researchers. Marissa's great. Sopan's great. Troy, who I work with, is great. The best researchers are the ones that can adapt, and Gil's constantly adapting, right? And bringing up new ideas. And he's not just doing his job, he's going above and beyond his job, because then you prove value, right? And that's where you separate yourself. But also you understand, Gil understands what we want and how we want it. And also he'll come back and be like, but I like this. How about this? This is something you might like. When you are comfortable with who you are, and you also know you're providing a value to somebody, that person on the other side will appreciate you even more because they know that you're doing it for the team. And Gil stands out as one of those guys is like, hey, listen, this is all about what we're trying to do on the air. Like, perfect example, a couple of weeks ago, there was a debate on who would be our primetime performers. And Gil last year would always recommend guys, and many times it was like, yeah, okay, or it'd be like, I don't want to do that. No. Well, Gil specifically was like, what about this guy? And Booger was like, I don't, and it was like, well, what about this? And then I listened to what Gil said, and he was pretty passionate about it. And I came back and I was like, we should go with that. I actually like that. That's a good idea. Let's do that. And eventually, when we did that presentation, we made it a great conversation. We went back and forth, me and Boog. And then later on that week, that became a topic somewhere. And I sent Gil a note, and it was like, great job with that. That only happens because we're comfortable in our space. We have a great relationship. We don't come in with egos. We all know we're there for basically a team effort.
Thanks, Kev. I have one more, and then I know we're getting close to an hour, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. If you could interview only one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, man. We're talking sports, right?
I think it's anyone.
Anyone.
Well, shoot. For me, it would be my idol, Mahatma Gandhi. I'd sit down with Mahatma Gandhi and for an hour and just pick his brain, how he civil disobedience, and how he inspired Martin Luther King, how this guy who was maybe 120 pounds can disable an entire British Empire and free my ancestors. I mean, don't forget, I'm first generation here. My parents were alive when India wasn't a country. They were a colony under the British Empire. I mean, we didn't gain our independence till 1947. So like, and my dad was born in 1938. My mom was born in 1947. So it would be Mahatma Gandhi for me personally. Like, yeah, I'm a big student of his teachings and how it's all about self-discipline, civil disobedience. I think we could all learn a thing or two about those two concepts in this day and age when we use brute force through everything. And it's always my way or the highway instead of just actually having casual conversations where we can reach a solution on something. So that would be it for outside of sports. If we're talking specifics in the sports realm, anybody? Man, that's a really, really good question. I would probably think my idol was Bo Jackson. I got to interview Bo Jackson. I've been lucky enough to actually ask Michael Jordan a question. I've been lucky enough to, interview Allen Iverson and Joel Embiid and people I looked up to, through the years, and Brian Dawkins and stuff like that. So Julius Erving, who's, the 8-year-old Kevin Negandhi, is just like, thinks he's a god, and getting the chance to talk to him. So for me, looking back, if I had the chance to interview anybody in the sports realm, it would probably be Jesse Owens or Muhammad Ali, because those two guys were not just sports heroes. They changed cultures and they changed how we view things. And I'd love to pick their brain about the process and what they experienced personally. And because remember, those are two icons at the time, at the time that they were living, they were not celebrated the way they were celebrated after they passed away.
Dr. Oswald, would you like to ask the final question?
Terrible program.
Whoa.
I know, I'm sorry. I put you on the spot.
Yeah,
I can go first.
Oh, I'm going to defer my question to Brody, who's the sports editor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Kevin. Brody Kaiser. You mentioned how busy your life is, in the world of sports. I'm just wondering how you balance finding time to spend with your family and doing other things, hobbies you enjoy.
It's tough. I'm a father to a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. It's extremely challenging. My wife is also she works. She's type A. She's out of TV now. She works in corporate communications at a children's hospital. So her life and her job is demanding as well. It is extremely challenging. So there's a lot of give and take. So for my wife and me, it's like, okay, in the mornings, I'll take care of the kids. I'll get them ready. And she helps a lot too, because sometimes I'm sleeping because of late nights as well. But I'll help get them ready. I will take them to the bus stop before I would drop them off. She could just handle things later on because I'm working when they come home from school. And so she's got to handle dinner time. I race home and put the boys to bed while she puts our 5-year-old daughter to bed. Saturday is a perfect example of how tough it is. I'm in studio. I missed my 5-year-old daughter's first soccer game. So I got pictures and video from my wife. I missed my 7-year-old son's baseball game. I missed my 9-year-old's, basketball game. But Sunday morning, first thing I got up, let's go. Because my boys play flag football together. They're on the same team. I'm with them. We're outside throwing the football. And, Sundays are a day where they're like, it's the best day in the world. So we watch football all day. We spend time. I make sure I do everything possible. And then Mondays, I'm off because the way the schedule works, because we don't have a sports center at 6 p.m. During the football season. So it's literally everything. I do everything to make sure I do everything. At night, they come home. I'm home. My wife needs a break. Boom. Perfect example this week. My wife had to go out of town because of a death in the family. So she's been out of town. So we have a babysitter. So we're relying on the schedules. I'm calling her in Florida like, all right, so it's school pictures. What do they got to do? And I already got the boys in their clothes. I've got their smooth haircuts. I got that on Monday. So you're constantly coordinating schedules because being a dad, my dream job was being at ESPN. Being a dad is the greatest job that I have. And that is no lie. You guys will understand when you have kids. So being a father is the most important thing in the world. So you find a way to decompress. You've got to, because if you don't, you'll burn out. It is a challenge making sure you have time. Now, during the day, after they're at school, tape a podcast in the morning. Then I've got a noon show meeting. I get the chance to work out. And then, I'm maybe on the phone doing a bunch of things, paying a bunch of bills, talking to friends, catching up with my agent, driving into work. This is a daily thing. Doing a hit on Philly radio, did a hit on ESPN radio. You come up for air and you're like, all right, what am I going to do today? Yesterday I did a 2-hour thing for Disney. You go back down. It's just finding time to separate yourself. I got to tell you, spending an hour here, it also helps me. I love talking to college kids because it's a reminder of how lucky and how crazy your life can be, but how lucky, I am to fulfill the dreams that I've had. But also it energizes me again because you guys have the same dreams that I had sitting there, right? So it's like, gosh, you get to come up for air and appreciate what you have and then go back down. Summertime, I take a week off, I go to Florida. Springtime, I'll take a week off, I'll go to Florida. In between that time, you're just grinding and working every single day, and I'm lucky to do the job that I love.
Yeah, and like Kev mentioned, I try to take as much of the load off of him as I can, whether that's going to get lunch or going to get tea or going to get coffee. So just little things so he doesn't have to feel like he's overwhelmed or, he can't breathe or can't get up to do anything. And it's funny because sometimes he tells me Gil, relax, I got it. It's okay. But that's why I'm there, to make sure that he's taken care of and has everything that he needs. So
yeah, and Gil understands that. He can sense the room, and that's what a teammate does. And side thing too, we have fun. Gil knows, we have a ton of fun while we're working. And also, I had a pool party at my house, invited 50 people, and we all kicked it back in the summertime. And it's my way of saying thank you to everybody for working hard. And it's all of us taking a time out from things where we can just be ourselves, those are the cool things that you appreciate and love. And, we're lucky that ESPN's a place where we're all here because we love our job. And that's pretty important when you get into business.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. You have had a very long day today. I appreciate you taking out the time to do this. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you, man. And
Gil,
thank you so much.
It's the least I can do for the fantastic cheesecakes that your wife brings in for us the last 2 weeks. His wife is the best cheesecake maker ever. I will never go to Cheesecake Factory again. She has spoiled it for me and Booger McFarland. That's how good his cheesecakes are. Her cheesecakes are. So A+ to your wife. So thank you to her and yourself, and thank you guys for the great questions. Really, really good time.
Thank you.
And you got an email. You got an email from me about week 3, looking ahead to Saturday.
We'll take it. Guys, good luck to you guys. Stay safe and stay hungry, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kev. All right. Any final questions for me?
DeAndre does, we got a question.
How was your time at Ferris?
I'm sorry?
How was your time here at Ferris?
How was
Oh, how my time at Ferris? It was great. No, it was an adjustment. First couple years, definitely probably partying too much. I can admit that. Dr. A kind of reeled me in a little bit. I mean, it's funny, like teachers like Dr. A and other people will probably see more potential in you than you probably see at the time, given the age. And so I appreciate her for staying on top of me as much as she did. Just that point, because like back then it was just like who is this lady and why is she like so deep into my business for no reason? Like, what is going on here? Like, I'm literally here in school, you know, like I want to have fun and enjoy it. I had just gotten away from home and different things like that. But, you know, you look back at it now and you're like, wow, like she really cared about me and my well-being and my career, about what things I could do. Cause I used to want to be on TV. But, you know, I think after a while it was like, okay, like I can do something behind the camera and different things like, and mind you, like I did do, you know, I did Bulldog radio for women's basketball and did some stuff for the television digital media production, doing some of their shows, hosting some of their shows. I mean, I did a little bit of that. I probably definitely didn't do as much as I probably needed to do to potentially be on TV. But this is like the next best thing. Working behind the camera, working with great people like Kev, and ironically, I've worked with Reese Davis on game day, obviously. And it's weird because he was doing my sports when I was growing up as a younger kid. So to actually like work alongside him, like, wow, like things have kind of come full circle. But Ferris was good. Definitely enjoyed it. Like I think I always tell Dr. A, I think at least once a year, I'm like, man, I wish this program was around when I was in school. Like, this is great. But I'm appreciative because, you know, it allows me a chance to give back and, you know, have people like Kev and, you know, other people who I can potentially line up for the future to come in and speak and just kind of share their thoughts.